Welcome, friends. It's nighttime here. I'm getting ready for bed with a warm bath and some lavender tea. But before I can settle in for a long winter's nap, I need to head down this long, winding rabbit's hole and share the tragedy of the Hart family. A seemingly stable and dedicated white lesbian couple adopted 6 black children. They appeared to have the perfect life and plastered it all over social media. And then, in March of 2018, one of the women drove the entire family off a cliff. Today, investigators and friends are still looking for answers. What was really happening in the Hart family home?
Also hearing from a close family friend who says that she was drawn to their energy, their charisma, for spotting them at a festival 6 years ago. Let's go to our Cole Miller now, who met up with her and joins us live with how she'll remember the Harts. Cole?
Well, Jennifer, she tells me there were never any signs of trouble, that this was a model family with parents Sarah and Jennifer taking in those 6 kids and supporting them. She just learned about this tragedy earlier today. She's still trying to get to grips with the reality of what took place.
They were that really bright kind of presence. It was pretty hard to miss them. Any event that I was at where they were, if I had a camera, I was of course attracted to that.
There was something about this family, Sarah and Jennifer Hart, and those 6 adopted children that photographer Zippy Lomax was almost immediately captivated by.
I was inspired by them. They gave me hope.
Jen and Sarah Hart seemed like they had it all on social media. Jen plastered her perfect, vegan, Mother Earth-loving, 6 kids-rearing daily activities all over Facebook. But behind the computer screen, something secret was going on in the Hart house. Jennifer Jean Hart and Sarah Margaret Hart were both from South Dakota. Both women were the eldest children of their families. Jennifer had 2 siblings and Sarah had 3. The 2 women attended and began their relationship at Northern State University. Both majored in elementary education, with Sarah focusing on special education. After Sarah graduated in 2002, Jennifer left the university without graduating. In 2005, Sarah asked a local court to have her last name altered to match her partner's. The couple went to Connecticut to be married in 2009 because at the time, same-sex marriage was not legal everywhere in the United States. On Facebook, Jennifer stated that the women were initially closeted and faced ostracism once they publicly outed themselves, prompting the couple to move. They moved to Alexandria, Minnesota in 2004, where both women worked at her burger store. The young couple's motherhood journey was documented for friends and family to follow and fawn over ever since they adopted their first set of siblings in 2006. However, a sometimes little-known fact about this case is that, prior to adopting their 6 children, the Harts were foster parents to a 15-year-old girl. A week before their first 3 children were due to arrive, the ones that they were going to adopt, the Harts dropped the foster girl off at the local kindergarten where the girl was to attend a session for therapy. The therapist then informed the girl that the Harts would not be coming back for her. Since then, it's been said that the girl was very upset and overwhelmed. She didn't know why she was being left by the women she thought were eventually going to adopt her. Jen and Sarah moved forward with their first adoption. Abigail, born in 2003, Hannah Jean, born in 2002, and Marcus Hart, born in 1998, were adopted by the Harts from Colorado County, Texas. The placement came on March 4, 2006, and they were adopted that September. In June 2008, they adopted 3 additional children: Sierra Maha, born in 2005, Devonte Jordan, born in 2002, and Jeremiah, born in 2004, originating from Houston. After their biological mother, Sherry Davis, lost custody due to substance abuse problems in August, the Davis children were actually given to their paternal aunt, Priscilla Celestine, under the condition that they would have no contact with their biological mother. However, After Priscilla was required to work a late shift, she allowed Davis to babysit the children, and a caseworker showed up at the house and observed that the mother was being left alone with the children. As a result, the children were removed from Celeste's care, and a court prevented Celeste from obtaining permanent custody. Once all was said and done with the tragedy, lots of questions would arise as to why the children were removed from their biological aunt's care. Even though she made a mistake in leaving the children with their mother, it may have been a better setting for them rather than going to strangers to be raised by the Hart family. The Davis children were put into foster care. Their brother, Dante, was never adopted by the Harts, and this was due to ongoing behavioral issues. The Harts were semi-famous prior to the tragedy because 12-year-old Devonte came into the national spotlight when he was photographed crying as he embraced a police officer during a 2014 protest in Portland, Oregon, resulting from the Ferguson unrest. The Harts took their children all around the country attending festivals and protests, and this was not the first time Devonte had been photographed, but it was the most popular. The image became known as the hug felt round the world. Jennifer was very active on social media and used Facebook to continually project this image of a loving, happy family, while also sharing her thoughts on race, politics, and showing off the trips that the family went on. This outward performance assisted in masking some of the problems within the family. In 2008, while the family was living in Minnesota, a teacher observed bruises on Hannah's left arm. Hannah said she'd been hit by Jennifer with a belt. Within months, all 6 children had been pulled out of the public school system by the Harts. In 2010, Abigail said that she had owies on her back and stomach, stating that she felt threatened by the Harts. She claimed the Harts had beaten her and held her head under water over a penny they assumed she'd stolen. When authorities became involved, all children claimed that they had been spanked constantly and deprived of food. Sarah took responsibility for the abuse, although the children were saying that Jennifer was the one who did it. But Sarah pled guilty to assault and was sentenced to community service for a year. And this is really interesting because, once again, the children were accusing Jennifer, not Sarah. And Sarah was the one with the degree in elementary education for children with special needs. So it seems unusual that Sarah would step in and take complete fault for what happened, considering she was the one who was working and carrying the degree for both of them. This seemed to be an ongoing issue within their relationship, Sarah often taking all responsibility and Jen staying home with the kids, not working, and seemingly not taking on very much responsibility for the family. 1 year later, the kids had been back in school, and Hannah reportedly told a nurse that she had not eaten all day. Sarah claimed that Hannah was merely playing the food card per usual and recommended that she just be given water when she was called at work. Soon afterward, all 6 children were again taken out of the public schools and were homeschooled from then on. And here we can see one of Jen's posts on social media on her Facebook page where she highlights that her kids are being homeschooled, puts them in a very idyllic scene, and says, "This is schooling the Hart family way." In 2013, Oregon authorities were notified of the abuse allegations in Minnesota. Their investigation included separate interviews of everyone in the family, as well as interviews of people who knew the family. 2 family friends stated that the children were forced to raise their hands before speaking, could not wish each other a happy birthday, and could not laugh at the dinner table. There were other reports that the children were poorly fed and looked small for their ages. One family friend reported that Jennifer had ordered a pizza for the children, but each was only allowed to have a small slice. When Jennifer discovered that the pizza was gone, she punished the children by not feeding them breakfast and forcing them to lie on their bed for 5 hours. Friends also stated that the children acted scared to death of Jen and likened them to trained robots. However, even during these interviews of the children themselves never revealed any new instances of abuse. nor did they mention anything that had happened in Minnesota. When Jennifer herself was interviewed, she claimed that any family problems were the result of others not being tolerant of 2 lesbian mothers with 6 African American children. In the end, the investigation could not conclude whether the Harts were guilty of anything or whether there was any kind of safety threat, and nothing was done. Then, the Harts made their final move to Woodland, Washington, into a somewhat secluded home in a small, rural community. On their Facebook, they showed themselves raising chickens. The kids ate all organic, vegan food. They meditated and carried around signs saying, "I give free hugs," when out in public. But everything was about to take an unexpected turn. In August 2014, Hannah reportedly jumped out of her second-story bedroom window around 1:30 a.m. She approached the residence of her next-door neighbors, the DeKalbs. Hannah reportedly pleaded with Dana, the female of the couple, "Don't make me go back. They're racist and they abuse us." However, soon afterwards, the Harts showed up with all 5 children at the front door. They told Dana that Hannah was a drug baby, quote unquote, and that Hannah's biological mother was bipolar. Sometimes the kids had problems like this and they needed to take her home. After this incident, Dana also came into contact with Devontae, who she started seeing doing chores outside in his yard. Devontae began coming over and constantly asking and begging for food. He asked Dana not to tell Jennifer about his requests and said he had to hide the food for later. In other conversations with Devontae, he told Dana that his adoptive mothers withheld food as punishment and that the children were sometimes abused. This, combined with the earlier incident, made Dana report the Harts to both the police and to the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services, DSHS. Caseworkers from DSHS tried to reach the Harts twice, once on March 23, 2018, 3 days before the tragedy, and then once again on the day of the actual tragedy. The timeline is like this. On March 23rd, CPS showed up at the Harts' house, but no one came to the door. Reportedly, Sarah received a frantic call at work from Jennifer. On March 24th, Sarah called out sick. Reportedly, she was someone who never called out sick. The neighbors noticed the Harts' car was gone and assumed they left the area, worried it was over the CPS contact. By March 25th, Sarah, Jennifer, and the 6 children were allegedly traveling down the coast. They stopped at a store and bought several items like toothbrushes and medicine. And this is actually a later released picture of Jennifer Hart. She looks different, doesn't she? Not exactly what she posted on social media. Many friends and family have said that they were shocked when they saw this picture. Jennifer had put on a lot of weight. Not that that's a big deal, but something seems really off. It continues to lend to the confusion about what was going on with this family. This picture from a surveillance camera in a grocery store shows Jennifer picking up some toothbrushes and other odds and ends that potentially were for the children as they traveled down the coast. It's unclear what happened over the next 24 to 48 hours. On March 26, 2018, Jennifer and Sarah Hart murdered all 6 of their children when Jennifer drove their vehicle, a Yukon XL, over a 100-foot cliff on California State Route 1. The bodies of the 5 children, Hannah, Marcus, Jeremiah, Abigail, and Sierra, were found in or near the vehicle, which had landed upside down on a beach below the cliff. The body of Devontae has never been found. A Superior Court judge ruled that Devontae was in the vehicle at the time of the crash, even though his body could not be found, and a death certificate was signed on April 3, 2019. After the crash, authorities determined that the Yukon had been intentionally driven off the edge of the cliff. The car had a black box that recorded parameters of the drive and fall. A 14-member coroner's jury unanimously ruled the case a murder-suicide. The inquest was called to determine cause of death, but not any responsibility in the civil or criminal fields. The California Highway Patrol stated that criminal prosecution was not possible due to the deaths the deaths of the responsible parties. Toxicology results showed that Jennifer's blood alcohol content was over the legal limit at the time of the crash, and that both Sarah and 2 of the children had diphenylhydramine in their systems. Sarah had made Google searches before the crash inquiring about Benadryl, no-kill shelters, and the nature of drowning. So the no-kill shelters would have been in relationship to their dogs, who I believe they did drop off at shelters before they killed their 6 children. The crime and unspeakable tragedy of the Hart family was examined in the 2020 documentary, A Thread of Deceit, The Hart Family Tragedy. After the tragedy, investigators soon realized there was much more to the Hart family than what Jen's cheery and inspirational Facebook posts had led people to believe. As more information was uncovered, more and more questions about who exactly Sarah and Jen were arose, and in a podcast called Broken Hearts, their relationship history, ongoing troubles with Child Protective Services, and allegations of abuse were meticulously unpacked as reporters spoke to their friends, family, neighbors, and the police to try to understand one of the most disturbing true crime stories of our time. According to an incident report following the murders, Sarah, who worked at Kohl's as a manager, didn't talk a lot about her family, but once told a coworker that she wished someone would have told her it was okay to not have a big family. Then she and Jennifer would not have adopted so many children. A family friend also said that in Jennifer's Facebook pictures, the kids pose and they're made to look like one big happy family, but after the photo event, they just go back to looking lifeless. A former friend of the Harts also admitted to calling Child Protective Services after the Hart family had stayed with them, claiming Jen handled the children like a regimented boot camp, adding that she would often get angry if they laughed too loudly. True kindness, love, and respect for the kids was largely absent, she said. When police searched their homes, investigators described it as sterile, with empty picture frames hung on the wall. The kids' room had 2 small beds and a mattress on the floor and not much else for 6 children. I didn't even get the indication that children lived in the house, one officer wrote in his report. In a 2010 email, Jen described their home life as quote-unquote very roller coaster-ish. She explained to a friend, "For quite some time, I have felt very underappreciated and taken for granted in our relationship, and at times unloved. While I know deep down in my heart how much she loves me, she is horrible about showing that." And this is Jennifer. She's the one who stayed home with the kids. In a Facebook post in 2016, Jen wrote, "We've come to realize that some think our lives are next to perfect, but we're human and we struggle through life's obstacle course just like everyone else." Later on, she looked back on the first half of 2017 claiming, "This year slammed us hard." Also, it turned out Jen had been spending an inordinate amount of time online playing computer games while she was supposedly with the kids, homeschooling them. The games were interactive, and several people who played with Jennifer across the country alleged that Jen spent many hours a day online with them all week long. They didn't even know she had children. As details about the allegations of abuse emerged following the crash, friends of the couple struggled to reconcile the disturbing accounts with the image they had been presented on social media. Many friends had to acknowledge they knew the couple mostly through meeting up at festivals or protests, but didn't actually hang around them on an everyday basis. Looking back with what they know now, there are some things loved ones didn't notice before. Like a longtime friend realizing there was no paint on the brushes in a picture Jen posted when she said the children were painting. After the murders, the friend was quoted as saying, "I don't know what's real or fake anymore." So, what was going on with the Hart family? Let's be honest, they were portraying a total lie on social media. On social media, they made themselves out to be like heroes, raising 6 children whose parents didn't want them. They also played the victim, often stating that people were rude and mean and unkind to them because their children were African American or because they were lesbian. They moved throughout the country, always moving away whenever CPS got involved. How were these two women able to hang on to these 6 African American children when it was brought to the attention of CPS on several occasions that they were being abused? It's hard to say exactly, but I'm sure some of it has to do with privilege. Jennifer worked really hard to portray herself and Sarah as victims of a culture who just didn't understand them and their crusade to save these 6 African American children from foster care. So, regardless of the fact that the children tried to tell safe adults what was going on in the home, they were left with the Harts. The Harts beat them, starved them, and eventually murdered them. May we learn from this case to never assume, and that life is not always what it appears to be on social media.